Hi guys. Name's Mike. First time producing YouTube videos, trying to figure something out for myself. Trying to expand this as far as I go. I post some stuff on Facebook and everything, and this is my first time really trying to do this. I'm on here to share my story, share some motivation, positivity, spread the love, spread the wealth, A little bit about myself. I spent roughly a decade driving a truck. During that time, I chain smoked and generally didn't take good care of myself. I started off at I was mostly at 280, 295 most of my young life once high school hit and after. Um, I started driving a truck and I had a, relatively aggressive smoking habit by then, mostly out of boredom, honestly. I've never really struggled much with addiction, but it was just one of those things I did because I had nothing else to do. So I drive down the road all day, drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes, and living on a steady diet of truck stop garbage and almonds. That was my whole day. I wasn't living well, and I was mostly just running away from everything. Fast forward to a little bit into that, I got married and kept driving. Decided I needed to quit smoking, and through a suggestion from someone, I decided to try and replace that habit with what was their exact words? Every time you feel like having a cigarette, eat a piece of chocolate. Well, that quickly evolved into eating to replace every time I felt like smoking a cigarette. And that involved me just snacking uncontrollably on high grade garbage. Now, as you can imagine, I already said I wasn't eating well at truck stops and stuff, so it didn't take long for all those high calorie food and highly processed nonsense to go straight to my waistline. Now, I've never been a skinny person by any means. Even when I was at 280, 295 and played football and those other things, when I was younger, I always dealt with being overweight and everything like that, but it was never something where it impeded me being active. I was still relatively active for a heavier set kid. But by this point, I was struggling with being able to move around well. I was having mobility issues. Legs were aching. Back was aching. I was getting eczema and stuff, skin or spots on my skin. I dealt for a little while. I dealt with patches of hair falling out of my beard. I dealt with gastroesophageal issues. What was it? Something called GERD. I had carpal tunnel by the time I was 26. I generally was a mess. And I spent almost a decade in a mess. I didn't really have a reason to continue trying to be better than that. I just kept doing what I was doing. I figured, there was no reason not to. I sort of assumed that as long as I was out working and everything like that didn't really matter. So I stopped taking care of myself. And what that evolved into was fast forwarding to, I don't know, 5-6 years into that, and I had ballooned out to like 476 pounds. I was like a step away from 500 pounds. Like a whole ass elephant's leg. Nothing to be proud of. I still wasn't trying. I didn't see anything wrong with the way I was living my life at the time, and I don't really know if I cared how I looked and how I felt. When you're that big, nothing ever feels good. Your stomach always hurts. You deal with a lot of different situations, low energy, fatigue, and all that. But after a while, it just becomes every day. So you just figure like you're just worn out. So at my first chance, I tried to do a vegetarian diet for a few months, but gave up on it relatively quickly because, well, for better, for worse, I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't have any resources at the time or didn't research it enough to help myself through that. But long story short, I wasn't taking in enough protein to really stay satisfied and comfortable, and I always felt like I was hungry. And at the time, I wasn't as creative as I wish I was with my meals. Like some things yes, but some things no. And I didn't bother to learn as much about nutrition as I do nowadays. I try and keep as informed as I can, but every day's a new adventure with that. Fast forward a few more years and I go through a divorce and deal with a bunch of other things. Before my divorce, I went to a doctor and I was talking with him, and I'm sitting there, I'll never forget. I'm sitting there talking with him, and I walked into his office, and then he asked me, what I was there for. And I was there for a checkup. I'd never really had a checkup. You go in there, kick the tires, draw some blood, tell you what's up. I figured he was, I always avoided doctors because I always figured you're going to go in there, they're going to find something wrong with you. So if you avoid doctors, you're never going to have to hear something's wrong with you. But turns out after a long enough time of things just falling apart, something's bound to be wrong with you if you're not taking care of yourself. And that's what happened to me on this visit. I sat down, and the doctor, my doctor's name is Dr. Ducato. Great guy. He's actually, I will continually to go back to the guy over and over again just because of his straightforward attitude with me. Because I sat down and I'm talking with him about all these different things that are wrong with me. I'm saying, Doc, my legs hurt, my ankles, my back, I have swelling in my calves, I have itchy spots on my skin, I have indigestion all the time, and I'll burp and it tastes like sulfury, like awful. I don't feel well, I'm tired, I'm irritable. I had a million different things that were wrong with me. And he just looks at me, looks me up and down, and he's sort of if you want me to be honest, you're overweight, right? Like, really overweight. He's like, looks at my chart, says, you're over 450 pounds, you're 470 pounds. That's not healthy. And all these things, they're caused by that. Your body's out of whack. No human's meant to be this big. And I came to call them lovingly fat guy problems. Because they aren't health problems. I'm not genetically predispositioned to anything bad, I literally was in a prison of my own making. And so I asked him what I could do about it. Well, he said, well, I would always recommend trying to lose the weight, but most people don't. And so what he recommended I go in for a gastric bypass or one of those to try and help, he said, because most people don't stay on a diet long enough to lose weight. He said most people will have the best intentions but can't stick with it. And so I went home that day to go talk to my wife at the time, and I had in my head the idea that I was going to go through with this surgery and go from there. And then so I looked into what this surgery entailed. And the surgery entailed them going in there and sort of snipping out a section of my stomach and then suturing it up so it was smaller. So my fat ass couldn't shovel as many jelly donuts in as I normally could. Basically limit the amount of fat-inducing calories and dietary everything that I'd been so far. And that seemed ridiculous to me. I was blown away by the concept of going inside, of having someone cut me open, which at the time I'd never had a surgery before. And my first surgery was just going to be because I didn't have the willpower to put down the fork. That's what this was about. And so I decided to turn around and look into all the different ways people lose weight. And at the time, that's where I came across keto. So I came into this bound and determined to prove this doctor wrong and lose some weight, get myself better. So I went on keto, and I stayed true to that for a while. And wouldn't you know it, I started shedding pounds. Now, keto can be a very good ship for losing weight. I lost 100 pounds on keto in 6 months. So I went from 476 to 376 relatively quick. And then I plateaued. I was doing the same thing I was before, but I just wasn't losing the weight. I thought maybe if I sort of did a reset and tried to come off of keto and then go back onto keto. Maybe that would help, but I never saw the same results as I did in that first 6 months. And I'm sitting there, I'm trying to stick to keto. I'm trying to stick to my diet. No matter what I did, I wasn't losing any more weight. And I don't know, it got frustrating. But I did go back to the doctor when I had lost that weight. And he looked at me and he said, he looks at my chart and he looks at me and he goes, "What did you do?" He was dumbfounded. And I told him, I said, "Well, I started on keto and I shed a bunch of weight. I learned a lot about diet and how your body reacts to different things and stomach bacteria and all that stuff." That was just my introduction to all that. But after it stopped working, I got off my diet for a little while. I went through my divorce, which was shattering in and of itself. You know, you go through certain things after being with someone for 10 years, and then you kind of think, you know, you kind of settled into a rhythm. You're never really expecting someone to tell you that they're just not happy, especially when you feel blindsided by it. But, you know, you move forward and you keep going. I had been driving a truck for the whole 10 years, or for 10 years at that point, and I decided I needed a change, and I got offered a job working at a Harley dealership selling bikes, which was fun. I did that for a couple years too. But I slipped back into some bad habits while I was doing that, and wasn't really crazy about that, and kept getting, like, I sort of stayed in that 470s, 460s range. Couldn't really kick any more weight off of me. It was frustrating. Or 360s, 370s, sorry. I couldn't kick any more weight off me. It's getting frustrating. No matter what I did, it didn't seem like the weight was going anywhere. And so, you know, you fast forward to now. How did I get here? I was sitting at home on a normal night where I would have been hanging out and just chilling, drinking with my friends, having a good time, and still wondering what was wrong. I'd given up on my diet for a while and just couldn't figure it out. Couldn't decide where I went wrong. Started feeling sorry for myself a lot, right? Which didn't help, because then I'd just go out and drink and have fun with my friends more instead of just focusing on the problem. And I'm not a kid anymore, right? I'm almost 40. But I spent a lot of time after my divorce being depressed and trying to fight past that while still trying to maintain a good relationship with my kids, because at the end of the day, my girls are all that matter to me. I have 2 little girls. Well, I worked at the Harley dealership, started riding. I had a good time with that for the very short-lived time that I did. And then I got in a serious accident where I ended up in the hospital with a shattered humerus. And after a 6-hour surgery, I was laid up and couldn't go back to work for a few weeks while I was convalescing and recovering. And then even after I went back to work, I never quite got back to where I was in sales. I couldn't get out of my own head, and I started sliding downward really bad because I was depressed because my arm didn't work and I wasn't capable like I was before, and I hurt all the time, and I took to self-medicating with alcohol to try and get past the pain, because nothing else worked, because they prescribed me Vicodins and all those things, and none of those helped. And I tried to get back to work, and I tried to get going with that, and I just couldn't find myself. And, you know, I started trying to pick myself up. The one thing I always maintained is, at least from an outward appearances, I always tried, before my accident, I was always a very positive person. I figured, I have a saying that I always tell everybody, and that's, every morning when you wake up, the world is determined to bring you down to its level. So the higher you start that day, the better attitude you start with the day, the more you make life work for it. So why not make life work for it? I'm not going to make it easy on life. I'm going to try and come at this as positive as I can. And that always seemed to inspire people and make people happy with me. I was really a joy to be around until my accident. You know, and so it was around that time that I'm on Facebook, and I went to one of my old accounts and came across a message from someone who I hadn't spoken to since high school, a little bit after high school. The last time we see each other was like 18 years ago, long before I got married, long before I drove a truck. And it was this girl that, when I was in high school, I would have never thought she would have been interested in me at all. And we started talking, and she was going through her own things. She had 2 kids. I had 2 kids. And originally we were just going to be 2 friends reconnecting, letting our kids hang out together because they were all around the same age. They were going to have fun. We were going to have a good day. And honestly, when I first came into this, I kind of thought it was not going to go anywhere. Initially, we didn't even really hang out. We just talked on the phone. And the more we talked on the phone, the more everything just felt natural and perfect. And the more I felt this positivity and energy well up inside of me, and helped me remember a part of myself that I lost. And I started remembering what I was trying to do and who I was trying to be there for my kids, be there for myself. I started finding that part of myself that I lost. And then, fast forward to hanging out for the first time. And I just remember getting out of the car, rolling up to her house, getting out of the car and looking at her for the first time, and just, there weren't words. I felt floored just seeing her again. It'd been all that time, and we were much older. We weren't teenagers anymore. We weren't kids anymore, but it felt like nothing had changed. It felt like that first time that I walked into our speech class and saw her. And it reminded me of how I felt all that time ago. And you know what? After all that time, it felt like nothing had changed. And, we spent time together, and she brought a lot of positivity in my life. And, fast forward to now, we're living together and stuff. But I'm getting off track. So life was good. And a lot of the positive things she brings to my life is she's a positive force of energy. And she has all this life and warmth. And she has a point of view that I appreciate all the time, because I'm pragmatic and realistic about a lot of things. I'm always very, I want to say utilitarian with the way I look at life. And I'm never trying to be, but I'm always overly, the word realistic keeps coming to mind, but it's not really being realistic. I'm logical about a lot of things. So I just accept things as they are. But she thinks with this. And I was always up here. And through being with her, she reminded me some things about myself that maybe I forgot. But the cool thing was, while hanging out with her, she does different stuff like yoga, meditation. She was vegetarian for her own reasons. And it brought back into life this idea that I had been trying to lose weight and be healthier before. And, having someone in my life who was going through that again, or who was doing similar stuff, or who was a healthier person and doing stuff, gave me the motivation to try again. And so that was a year and a half ago. A year and a half since we first started talking. And I'm thankful every day for having her around. We've been living together for about 5 months or so. 4 months, 5. We moved in together, and I've been doing the vegetarian thing, and for a while I did stretching with her and stuff like that. I would really love to get back into that. That's something I want to get into, and meditation. But she motivates me to be a better me. And the big thing though is, I'm starting to do the vegetarian thing again, and I find that there's a lot I didn't know about being a vegetarian, so she's helped me out with that. But now I'm here and I'm talking to you on this thing and I'm rambling on about this long story that you probably, if you're still here at the end or at this point in the video, bravo. It's been 20 minutes of me telling you a very mundane story about a fat guy who couldn't stop eating and can't stop rambling to save his life. I love the sound of my own voice, so that's what keeps me going doing these things. But in general, I'm just trying to get out my story so I can get to the more interesting stuff later on. I don't want you to wonder who in the hell is talking to you about these things and think I haven't come from anywhere. This just illustrate a little bit of struggle I've been through. It's not going to point out everything just because why? Why? These are all things that happen to me, but they're not. They're just things that happened to me. They're not things that were done to me, unless you count doing things to yourself. So now I'm on the path. I'm doing vegetarian because I realize there's, like, not for any love of animals. Not that I don't love animals, but I love the taste of a good steak, and I love chicken and fish and all that stuff, and I like hunting but my stepdad died of cancer going on a year ago, and he wasn't in my life that long, but the time he was in my life, it meant something to me. And honestly, when I first met the guy, I wasn't even sure I was going to like him, but I grew to respect him a lot and care about him, even if he was a gruff motherfucker. But he taught me a lot about life and about truck driving, and he was always honest to a fault. He didn't care what anyone said. But cancer took him from us. And that was hard to deal with. Telling my girls that their grandpa died and having to explain to them over and over again where he went and why he wasn't with us anymore. It just brought into focus a lot of things that I didn't want to put my kids through. And sort of what pushed me into this now is, like, I realize I don't want my kids to have to go through finding out someday that their dad got cancer just because he couldn't take care of himself. I couldn't live with myself if the reason why I couldn't be here for my kids, or if I wasn't in their life anymore, if my loved ones had to mourn me, was just because I couldn't put down the fork. You know, you talk to people all the time that don't want to make the choice to eat better or be healthier. And at the end of the day, you're basically making the choice about sweets and candy and all that nonsense being more important to you than living another 10 years. Feeling good in the moment's great, but having more moments to feel good is even better. I'm going to fight against everything I can not to get all these diseases they're always talking about on TV, a heart disease and Alzheimer's and so many other things that, cancer, the big C. Everyone's afraid of cancer. I feel like every time I turn around, cancer's taking more people from us. But no one's doing everything in their power to not get cancer. Everyone's just watching cancer take people from us. Everyone's watching heart disease take people from us. And then they cry about it, and then they go and shove their mouths full of the food that gave people or fed the cancer or the heart disease or the diabetes or anything like that. You can make a choice every day to be healthier. But what's important to you, living longer or eating better? You can eat really well and still be healthy. I'm going to post more interesting videos, I promise. In fact, I'll probably post another one right after this because it's my first time doing YouTube, but 24 minutes and I just wanted you to know who I am and what I'm about. I may edit this. I may take it down and post a different one, but for now, this is my explanation. It's not a manifesto, but it's who I am and who I'm trying to be. That's what I got. My name is Mike. Stick with me. I promise this is going to be more interesting. I promise I'm not boring. I'm just telling a story right now. And sometimes my stories drag on, like an old man. But who doesn't like a good old man story? Anyway, stick with me, guys. I promise the next one will be better. Take it easy. Thanks for listening.